And their torment, there's the 5 again, right? And their torment was like the stinging of a scorpion. In these days, men will seek death, and they will not find it. They will long to die, but death will escape them. So here we've got some sort of predator class, the hunter class of phantazoids that go around not to eat people, as has been portrayed in many movies. The hunter class of phantazoids. That's what we're afraid of. We've been conditioned to be afraid of being eaten. Okay, these things are not here. They're not here. That's what we're afraid of. No, they don't. We've been conditioned to be afraid of being eaten. Now, what they're here to do, they're here to attack. They're on a seek and destroy. They're here to go fight people. They're on a seek and destroy. Interestingly enough, here's the movie. Okay, A Quiet Place. This is from the actual movie. As you can see, this guy is he's been doing his research, which is critical. What we're doing right now is doing our research. That's what we're doing. We're not just mindlessly being entertained about, oh, monsters could be real. How awesome is that? Yes, we're kind of doing that, but at the same time, we are also researching. We are doing exactly what this guy in the movie is doing right now. We're learning about what is to come. We're getting prepared, all of these things. Now, over here, there's all this newspaper clippings and stuff. He has a whiteboard, which I like, right? He's got a whiteboard and he's got all his notes up there. On the left-hand side, it says creature. The creature is blind. They attack sound. They have armor. Do you see that? Armor is written in blue there and underlined, okay? Exactly how the phantazoids I've been describing are. They have an exoskeleton. They have armor. But I want to go over for just a second, and I want to show you something else. This is from the actual movie, right? But this right here, this is a clip from the preview. Now, I went through the whole movie a couple times. I didn't see this. This is different. So they changed the whiteboard from the preview to the release of the actual movie. So what I'm saying is this was not in the movie. Now, in the preview, he has down here at the bottom, why don't they eat their kill? The word eat is hidden here. But it says, why don't they eat their kill? Right? Let's see here. Yeah, look at that. See how the number 5 is there? Right? The number 5, once again, associated with the monsters, or the phantazoids, okay? The large beasts of old, or whatever. Why don't they eat their kill? Why am I showing you that? Because we're talking about the Revelation locusts that do not enter into this world in order to eat. That's not their primary goal, is not to eat people. Their primary goal is to infect, to sting, okay? Exactly how it is in this movie. In this movie, they don't go around eating. They're just going around to kill people because they have some sort of a purpose, right? But anyway, that's in the Quiet Place. I'm gonna go back to A Quiet Place here in just a minute after we finish with the Revelation locusts. Verse 7. And the locusts looked like horses that were prepared for battle. It means they were wearing armor with something like crowns of gold on their heads, right? Some sort of horns. Crown just means horn. For those of you who don't know, the word crown is the same word as corona, same word as corn, same word as horn. All of these words are the same thing. They mean horns, okay? So they have these crowns or these horns on their head. Faces like the faces of men. They had hair like that of women. Remember, Leviathan was described as having white hair, right? And teeth like those of lions. You see how they're taking all these different animals and beings and creatures and they're sticking them together? That's a chimera class phantazoid. They also had thoraxes. If you have a thorax, that indicates you're a bug class, okay? Like, you are a phantazoid of some sort, if this is you. They had thoraxes like the breastplates of iron. Then the sound of their wings was like the roar of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. So these ones actually have wings. So it's very likely that some of the phantazoids can fly. All right? Just like in Batman versus Superman. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but Batman does not like Superman. And he has this really bad dream or premonition about Superman. Basically, in the future, the Superman takes over the world, and he has these little flying phantazoid type bipedal phantazoids that are his helpers. They look like mosquitoes or, locusts, basically. They were ruled by a king, the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, you know? And they're always there. They're there at the beginning and they're there at the end. And they're only here for a short time. Like the Bible says, they're only allowed to go around tormenting people for 5 months. The 5th trumpet sounded. On the 5th day, God made the great beasts of old, the great monsters of old, etc. You've got the number 5 right there as well. So anyhow, yeah, that's the biblical examples of the phantazoids. Now, I want to talk about a couple of other examples of phantazoids, possible ones, that we have, I'm not going to actually, I don't know, should I share this? Let's see. Alright, so the mysterious creatures from the book of Joshua are found on a Mayan stela. This is the Mayan stela right here. It's basically a rock carving, okay? Look at this thing. It has the head of like a bear, the body of a man, and then it's got these sort of tail-like things coming down from its head, sort of tube-like or rope-like or something like that. Now, I'm going to read, I've read this before. This is from the book of Joshua. It's not in the Bible, but it used to be considered a part of, you know, historical sacred texts or whatnot. And it can definitely be found in the book of Joshua, chapter 36, verses 28 through 35. This was Anah who found the Yamim in the wilderness when he fed the asses, or donkeys, of Zibeon, his father. Whilst he was feeding his father's asses, he led them to the wilderness at different times to feed them. And there was a day that he brought them to one of the deserts on the seashore, opposite the wilderness of the people. And whilst he was feeding them, behold, a very heavy storm came from the other side of the sea, and rested upon the asses that were feeding there, and they all stood still. Afterward, about 120 great and terrible animals. About 120 great and terrible animals. That means scary and gigantic. These are phantazoids. Came out from the wilderness at the other side of the sea, and they all came to the place where the asses were, and they placed themselves there. And those animals from their middle downward were the shape of the children of men. From their middle upward, some had the likeness of bears, some the likeness of kephas, with tails behind them from between their shoulders reaching down to the earth, like the tails of the decupat. And these animals came and mounted and rode on the asses, and they led them away, and they went away until this day. The rest of the story basically goes that the people were terrified. They never went back to that place ever again, and it was very like, people warned, you know, don't go to that place, it's haunted, or, you know, there's these scary animals, or there's a legend of something that happened. That's what that was. That was such an important event of something out of the ordinary that they wrote that down, and it is mentioned in the Bible, okay? That story is actually mentioned in, I think it's the book of Genesis. But anyhow, there were 2 other animals named there. Let me go back to my live screen here. There were 2 other animals named there, okay? We already talked about the Leviathan and the Behemoth. In the book of Joshua, it mentions the Yemim. Now, scholars don't know what these words mean, okay? You can look it up. People will just have guesses, all right? The word Yem literally means ocean or sea, okay? Yemim means, basically, it conveys creatures from the ocean, or those from the sea, those from the waters, okay? That's the great waters. That's what that's implying. Now, if they're the monsters from the great waters, well, those are the great waters above us. And those monsters fall through the great waters during the plasma apocalypse, and they enter into our world, okay? And those are the same great waters. That's why you have the mirror symbolism, all right? The reason that people are always walking through a mirror in order to get to some crazy, wonderful, strange world is because the mirror are the waters above us. The ocean waters, they have a reflection just like a mirror. You can pass right through the waters, and during the plasma apocalypse, whenever the portals or the windows of heaven open, you can get out or you can come in, you know, vice versa. Same thing with underneath us, like here, Lalotai in Disney's Moana. Lalotai, you go through the waters again, and you enter into another fantastic realm. Same thing. All right. Let's see, where was I? Oh, that's right. We were talking about Yemim. So basically, Yemim means creatures from the great waters. Then you have another strange word, which is the Kifa. Well, Kifa is basically another word for rock, okay? Or Kefa. It depends on how you pronounce it. But it's the same exact word. It means rock or rock-like or stone. Something to that nature. So here we have another reference to these monsters having described as having like a stone-like type of a body, like made of rock, basically. They don't have skin how you and I do. They have exoskeletons.
If that's the case,
right? Okay, I can probably stop doing that now. And then the last word that was used was the D-U-C-H-E-E-P-H-A-T. Dookie
oh fuck,
pot,
did you find
or
somebody
dookie
when
fot.
I said that?
That's how you would read
Oh
it.
no.
Alright? But I don't believe that that's all one word. I believe those are three words. The D at the front in the ancient Phoenician or Hebrew language means of or from, essentially, okay? Then you have the same exact word, the kifa, which is spelled a little different, but it's still kifa. The d, kifa, and then ot, which is just a plural, okay? So it means basically the great sea creatures, or the great creatures from the great waters, the rock creatures, or the rock-like creatures, and then those who are from the rock-like creatures, which are the Dukifat, or the Dukifaot, okay? Those are, they're the offspring. They're their babies, basically. And that's just one example. That's from the book of Joshua. I highly recommend checking it out. All right, let's move on to knights fighting snails. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, there's going to be some pictures in the slideshow here, hopefully. But there are thousands and thousands of images from medieval times that show, like, you know, when people would write out a parchment, a scroll, or whatever, they would draw little pictures on it. They have all these hundreds of pictures of knights, medieval knights fighting snails. Like their lances are trying to ram right through the shell of the snail. Why? Why would that be? You know, and I've heard some really interesting theories on that. Some really interesting theories. But here's mine. Here's my take on it, right? The reason that you have all these knights that are dressed up fighting these snails is not because of what mainstream academia tells us, or totally guesses. And they basically say that the snails, oh, that's a metaphor, you know, they're symbolic of certain people that they didn't like, so they drew them like snails or whatever. I don't buy that. I don't know if you guys do or not. I don't buy that. I don't buy that the knights were drawn fighting snails because it was some sort of ancient way of trolling families that you didn't like. All right. The knights were fighting gigantic snails because they were fighting the Phantazoids, which were drawn in different ways, according to different perspectives and peoples and cultures and times, etc. These knights were they were drawn fighting Phantazoids, gigantic snails. Well, we know gigantic snails don't really exist, and if they did, why would a knight need to fight one? Why would you need a knight to fight a snail? Of course it wouldn't. You just poke right through its shell and it'd be dead, right? No, these are the Phantazoids that the knights are fighting, and the knights are the ones that fought the Phantazoids. That's why we had knights. You don't have knights. Think about it. We've got these knights, these men, these human beings, allegedly, that were dressed up in all this huge, heavy, bulky armor, you know, and they would come out, and have you ever seen people in the movies? They can barely even walk in this armor when they're trying to be like a knight or whatever. They're super heavy. It slows you down. This was not protection against human beings. This was not protection against terrestrial animals. The reason we had knights, I believe, during certain reset periods, one of them called the Middle Ages, is because these great men of renown, these heroes of old, they would get dressed up in, you know, the strongest, heaviest substances, these metals, and they would go fight the Phantazoids. They would go kill the dragons. They're the ones that went and did that, and that's why we get through all these celebrations for the knights and stuff. It's not because the knights were like the main fighters in the army against the human beings, you know? No, absolutely not. The knights were the ones that went out, they killed the monsters, they killed the dragons or the Phantazoids, and they had to wear all this huge, heavy, metallic armor because the Phantazoids will just rip you to shreds. Otherwise, you know, that's why you have pictures of knights fighting snails all across the board. Do yourself a quick Google. I don't know if it's going to pop up in the slideshow there. These are all Phantazoid examples. Whether it be mist monsters or fog monsters, or they're all Phantazoid examples, okay? But yeah, go Google knights fighting snails, and you can see, just click on images, and there's hundreds of them. They're not doing that as an insult to various families or whatever. No, they literally fought monsters, okay? They fought the Phantazoids. Alright, so those are the knights fighting the snails. I want to talk about this Netflix TV show called Love, Death, and Robots. I think that's what it's called. Let me go ahead and let me get it pulled up here, and we'll do some more screen sharing. All right, so here we go. Love, Death, and Robots. Whoa, whoa! It automatically plays. I have to be careful about that. All right, let's look at episodes. Now, I want to talk about this one first, all right? This one has Fantazoids in it, and I have paused it on this one particular scene, okay? I'm going to set the stage for you if you haven't seen this already. I highly advise watch this whole series, Love, Death, and Robots. Watch all of it, okay? This one right here, this is about these farmers that have these special exoskeletal type, weapons or whatever to fight the Fantazoids, okay? Here's what happens. Here's what you're looking at. The farmers are in their little biosuits here, right? There's a hole that opens up in the sky. And I kid you not, every single one of these little dots right here, I'll play it for like a half a second. So all those tiny little dots, those are all moving. Those are all Fantazoids that enter in through a hole in the sky. And
What's happening, guys? It seems to be working. This live stream appears to be live streaming. If you clicked on this video because you like JayDreamerZ, or you think that I actually am JayDreamerZ, I am not. I am a different person than that. And I don't want to just mirror his content because that is just lazy as hell. Because he puts a lot of work into his research, and I feel like it makes me want to also put a lot of work into my research and not just sit here and lazily talk about whatever comes into my head. Because, right, time is precious. You can't just be sitting around and just, you want to be actually consuming some sort of logical information. At least that's how I like to filter my YouTube videos. So I'm gonna get off because I already did a stream this afternoon. But yeah, every night, midnight, PST. If you're on the West Coast, come join me. And I'll do some research. But if you're into this whole sort of film clue looking for game, I am big on that. I've probably watched, it's impossible to say, thousands and thousands of episodes. Worked in television, worked on different stuff. Can't really talk about it, but I know a lot about television and entertainment, and, well, I'd like to share some stuff with you if I can get my mind right about it. I gotta be careful about what I actually do talk about because, well, they could come and get me, or at least screw up my life. And I'm trying to keep living my life while possibly also discussing my thoughts. Radical concept, I know, but gotta give it a shot. Anyways. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here. You guys have a good night, and hopefully we'll see you soon.